All right, glad you could make it back to the range. Pull up a stool, and let's cut through the noise for a minute. There is a distinct difference between what the marketing departments want to sell you and what actually works when the rubber meets the road. We toss the word classic around a lot in this community, but that title is earned in blood and gunpowder, not in a press release. These are the cartridges that cleared the frontier, fed families through the Depression, and defended this nation when it counted. But we know the drill. Every single year, the industry churns out the flavor of the week, flooding the SHOT Show floor with new proprietary rounds, promising laser beam trajectories and magic velocity. And the tragedy is, a lot of those proven, heritage rounds get pushed to the back of the gun safe, stuck behind a wall of 6.5 Creedmoors. Your local shop stops stocking the brass. The gun tubers stop making videos about them, and suddenly you have got a generation of new shooters who think ballistics did not exist before 2010. But here is a reality check. Isaac Newton does not negotiate, and physics does not have an expiration date. In 2026, we are seeing a serious shift. From the thick timber of the Appalachians to the open sagebrush of Wyoming, shooters are circling back. They are realizing that these ballistic ancestors offer a reliability and a lethality that the new hotness just cannot replicate. So today, we are blowing the dust off the history books. Here are 5 legendary cartridges that are clawing their way back into the fight. Number 5. The 7x57mm Mauser. We are starting this list by dialing it back to 1892. This is the brainchild of Paul Mauser, and to be blunt, this cartridge was the pivot point for modern small arms. It established a golden ratio of performance that, frankly, we are still chasing today. It offers a trajectory that defies gravity, recoil that is gentle enough to shoot all afternoon, and terminal ballistics that drop big game in their tracks. This was not just a hunting round, it was a combat multiplier. Adopted by the Spanish military, this round saw service in the trenches of the Spanish-American War, the Boer War, and across the globe. It was the grandfather of high-performance smokeless powder rounds, making the old big-bore black powder cannons obsolete before the smoke even cleared. Without the 7x57, we likely never would have developed the 30-06 Springfield. Technically, you are pushing a .284-inch pill out of a rimless, bottlenecked case with an overall length of 2.244 inches. Now, here is the technical caveat you need to understand. Here in the States, SAAMI holds this round back, capping the pressure at a mild 51,000 psi because there are still antique rifles out there that cannot handle the heat. But if you look at the European CIP data, they run this thing at 57,000 psi. If you are a handloader running a modern Ruger or Winchester bolt gun, you can wake this cartridge up. When you load heavy bullets in the 140 to 175 grain range, it becomes a hammer. What is it good for? Everything. Deer, elk, moose, it does not matter. The sectional density of these 7mm projectiles is legendary, meaning they penetrate through bone and muscle like a drill bit. This is the round WDM. Bell used to harvest over 1,000 elephants in the ivory days, relying on surgical precision with 175 grain solids. The only downside is logistics. Domestic factory ammo is often downloaded for liability reasons, and finding high-quality brass can be a hunt in itself compared to the ubiquitous 308. But for the reloading bench scientist, this is the holy grail. That long case neck is perfect for seating long, heavy bullets without eating up powder capacity. Stack a 160 grain partition over a charge of IMR 4350, and you have a recipe that hits with authority. Bottom line, it is arguably the most balanced cartridge ever designed. Lethal energy, match-grade accuracy, and a recoil impulse that is more of a polite shove. The 7 Mauser proves you do not need a Magnum belt to get the job done. Number 4. The 257 Roberts. Coming in at number 4, we have the gentleman's cartridge, the 257 Bob. This round lives in the absolute sweet spot for North American medium game. It is a quarter-bore masterpiece that balances velocity and shootability better than almost anything else in its class. It started as a wildcat project by Ned Roberts in the 1920s, until Remington standardized it in 1934. They took that same 7x57 Mauser case, necked it down to .257, and created a legend. You are working with a case length of 2.233 inches, ignited by a standard large rifle primer. The SAAMI pressure ceiling sits at 54,000 psi. So, why do we love the Bob? It is a dual-threat system. Load it light, and it vaporizes varmints. Load it heavy, and it is absolute poison for white-tailed deer. But the real selling point is the recoil or the lack of it. This is the ultimate transition rifle for youth shooters or anyone who flinches at the kick of a .30-06. Accuracy comes from confidence, and the Bob is a very confident shooter. The bad news is supply chain. You are not going to find this stacked high at big box stores next to the .243 Winchester or the .250-06. And when you do find premium loads, they are not cheap. However, if you roll your own ammo, the Bob shines. It stabilizes bullets from 75 grains all the way up to the heavy 100 grain class. Push those projectiles with H4831, and if you have a modern action, you can load to +P standards. That +P designation is vital. It bridges the gap and lets the Bob nip at the heels of the .250-06. It never dominated the sales charts, but it built a die-hard following among hunters who understand internal ballistics. It shoots softer than the .250-06, but hits with more authority than the .243. Nearly a century later, it is still dropping bucks with pure class. Number 3. The 4570. Government number 3 is American royalty. In 1873, the U.S. Army adopted the 4570 Government, and they created a monster. The nomenclature was simple: a .45 caliber projectile, pushed by 70 grains of black powder, weighing 405 grains. It was the fuel for the legendary Springfield trapdoor. They called it the Thumper for a reason. It is absolutely wild that a cartridge from the black powder era is arguably more popular in 2026 than it was 50 years ago. Thank the resurgence of the tactical lever gun market for that. We are talking about a massive, straight-walled rimmed case capable of throwing lead from 250 grains to over 500 grains. Inside of 150 yards, the 4570 is a freight train. It delivers massive hydrostatic shock. From moose in the Yukon to grizzlies in Alaska, this round has harvested every species of big game on this continent. It is the quintessential brushbuster. That slow, heavy slug carries so much momentum that it plows through foliage that would deflect a lighter, faster bullet. But listen to me, this is critical. You have to understand the 3 tiers of 4570 pressure. Tier 1 is for the trapdoor's low pressure, mimic black powder loads. Do not run anything else in those antiques, or you will have a catastrophic failure. Tier 2 is for the lever guns Marlin 1895s and Henrys. This is your standard hunting power. Tier 3 is the nuclear option. These are for the Ruger No. 1 or high-strength bolt actions. We are talking about hot, high-pressure loads that turn this ancient round into a dangerous game stopper that rivals the African Magnums. The recoil on those Tier 3 loads? It is abusive. It will detach your retinas if you are not careful. And ballistically, it has the trajectory of a rainbow. You are not sniping with this. But if you are a guide in bear country, or you are clearing hogs out of dense scrub, there is no better tool. 150 years in the game, and companies like Marlin are back-ordered on rifles for it. It is the hammer of Thor, plain and simple. Number 2. The .264 Winchester Magnum. Now, let's get some velocity in the conversation. Long before the 6.5 Creedmoor was a twinkle in Hornady's eye, Winchester built the original speed demon, the .264 Winchester Magnum. Released in 1959, this is a belted Magnum based on the 375 H&H case. Winchester had one goal: absolute dominance of the open western landscape. And they nailed it. It pushes a .264, 140-grain bullet at speeds touching 3,200 feet per second. This was designed for cross-canyon shots on mule deer where range estimation is tricky. It launched in the beautiful Model 70 Westerner, and it was the king of the plains. But the reign was short. In 1962, the 7mm Remington Magnum hit the market. The 7 Mag offered a better selection of heavy bullets and slightly better barrel life, and it effectively killed the .264. Commercially. But purely on ballistics? The .264 is still a beast. It leaves the modern 6.5 PRC and Creedmoor in the dust when we talk about raw speed. However, you pay for that speed. This is a classic overbore cartridge. You are funneling a bucket of powder down a relatively narrow bore, and that creates intense heat at the throat. Back in the day, these were known as barrel burners. Modern metallurgy helps, but this is not a high-volume range toy. Factory ammo is rare, and the brass commands a premium. This is strictly a handloader's cartridge in 2026. But if you know how to tune a load, it is worth the effort. It hits harder than the Creedmoor without the shoulder punishment of a 300 Win Mag. It is a forgotten gem that delivers legitimate long-range lethality. Number 1. The 35 Remington. And taking the top spot, we have the woodsman's secret weapon, the 35 Remington. Most of us just know it as the 35 Rem. This is a rimless, bottlenecked classic introduced in 1906. It was originally built for the Remington Model 8 autoloader, but it found its soulmate in the lever-action receiver. Think about the history here. Of all the rimless cartridges Remington launched in that era, the 35 is the only one still standing. Why? Because it is devastatingly effective. Think of it as the 30-30 Winchester's big, angry brother. It sits a tier above the 30-30 in terms of raw energy. It throws a much heavier, .358 diameter bullet. That translates to massive energy transfer and a significantly larger wound channel. Do not get it twisted. This is not a precision chassis rifle round. You are operating inside 200 yards, with the primary envelope being under 150. But for the whitetail woods of Pennsylvania, or black bear over bait, it is unmatched. It hits hard enough to ethically anchor elk if you are careful with your shot placement. It is a powerhouse in the timber where you need the animal to drop right there, not run 300 yards into a swamp. The rifle that cemented this legacy is the Marlin 336. That platform and this round are as American as apple pie. The strength lies in the bullet weight, massive knockdown power, and reliable expansion. The struggle today is simply finding boxes on the shelf. And for the reloaders, projectile selection is a bit more limited compared to the modern 35s. But this round predates the First World War, and it is still the first choice for hunters who know the difference between internet hype and meat in the freezer. The 35 Rem is not flashy, but if you are stalking through the pines and need a proven hammer, it is still the king of the woods. Looking at this list, the pattern is clear: efficiency over hype. The 7mm Mauser and the Roberts show us that a well-designed case geometry and high sectional density often outperform raw velocity. On the heavy end, the 4570 proves that momentum is a law of nature that never goes out of style. These cartridges aren't just old, they are refined. They were designed in an era where you couldn't miss, because you might not get a second shot. If you're a reloader, these 5 are your best friends. They offer a versatility that modern specialized rounds lack. If you're a buyer, you're looking at pieces of history that can still outshoot the guy with the carbon fiber barrel and the $5,000 optic. So there you have it, folks. 5 classic cartridges that simply refuse to fade away. If you enjoyed this deep dive into ballistics history, do me a solid. Smash that like button, it fights the algorithm and helps us keep the lights on. Head down to the comments section and let me know, which obsolete caliber are you still running in the deer woods? And make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss our next breakdown of the hardware that built this country. Till next time, watch your 6 and shoot straight.